Welcome, everyone. Today's webinar is titled FDA Drug Topics, Electronic Submission of Safety Reports, Ready for Prime Time. My name is Dr. Kara Burke, a pharmacist and team leader in the Division of Drug Information. I would like to welcome you to this educational activity sponsored by the FDA Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, Office of Communications, Division of Drug Information. We thank you and appreciate your patience as we continue to offer these CE courses completely virtual. If you experience any technical difficulties, please email us at ddiwebinars@fda.hhs.gov for direct assistance. Before I introduce our speakers, I have a few housekeeping remarks. All faculty are expected to use generic names. If trade names are used, those of several companies should be used rather than only that of a single supporting company. Unapproved use disclosure. CE faculty speakers are required to disclose to the attendees when products or procedures being discussed are off-label, unlabeled, not FDA approved, and any limitations on the information that is presented. Disclosure. The faculty's planning committee members and the FDA CE consultation and accreditation team have nothing to disclose. We hope you will enjoy meeting our presenters today. Mr. Saranjan De is the Deputy Director of CDER's Office of Surveillance and Epidemiology, Regulatory Science Staff at FDA. He oversees and provides expert advice and technical direction on regulatory science for developing new tools, standards, dictionaries, and approaches to assess the safety, efficacy, quality, and performance of all FDA-regulated products. He has over 25 years of experience with the FDA, the National Institutes of Health, and in the pharmaceutical industry. He received a master's degree in computer science from the Institute for Technology and Management in India and a master's in business administration from the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland. Ms. Jung Lee is a pharmacist at CDER's Office of Generic Drugs, Office of Safety and Clinical Evaluation, Division of Clinical Safety and Surveillance at FDA. Since joining FDA in 2014, she conducted generic drug safety surveillance and data analysis. She spent 6 years as a supervisor at the Medra Coding Quality Control contract, followed by a research fellowship conducting modeling and simulation for an FDA critical path project. She has a Bachelor of Science degree in pharmacy from the University of Maryland, Baltimore, and a Master of Public Health from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Now, please give a warm online welcome to Mr. De and Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Kara. Again, welcome to the webinar. Today's topic is about electronic submission of safety report and are we ready? So as we go through submitting safety reports and we identify incidents such, how do we report that to FDA and what mechanisms do we have? From a perspective of, if you're doing a clinical study, how would you report that as an investigator? And you're a healthcare professional and as an investigator, how would you report? Or as just a healthcare professional, when you are encountered with a safety incident, how would you report that voluntarily to the agency? So we'll go over that. And then later, Ms. Jung Lee is going to go over especially when you do a safety study, which is on a bioequivalence study, as an investigator, healthcare professional, how would you submit that kind of safety reports to the agency? So we'll recognize that, how FDA is going to be asking, in this case, industry to submit safety reports electronically, but also that what kind of updates that we have for submitting post-market safety reports, IND safety reports, and IND-exempt safety reports, which can be done by a investigator-sponsored trial or just a post-market setting where you have identified a safety incident that you want to submit to the agency. And then we describe the implementation status of what have we done to submit that to the FDA. And then how we'll explain about how to prepare for your electronic exchange of your safety reports. So reporting FDA in a particular format. Now, this probably is more applicable to larger organizations. So let's say if you are a big hospital where you are doing probably a clinical study, or you have your AA safety database that you capture all your safety incidents from your electronic patient health records, then you can use a particular standard here to submit to the agency, which is called the ICH E2B R3 standard. Then we have separate submission paths. So how do you submit a post-market report versus a pre-market report? So which means if you're doing a IND study at your hospital, how would you submit that report to FDA electronically? Or if you were to submit a post-market report to the FDA, how would you submit electronically? And then, of course, all the specifications are explained in this particular website. And for all communications, you would do via the FAERS electronic submission webpage. So which means all communication that we give out about electronic submission are on this webpage, and you can go to FDA.gov to visit this page for any specification details about electronic submission. So the way we approach this is that if you were to submit from your organization a safety report, and you are the private sponsor of this, or a research sponsor, or are doing a non-commercial IND, then as the healthcare professional at that organization, you can submit the pre-market safety report through a particular standard in which you would mention where to send it, there's a concept of a routing ID where it tells you to submit through that pre-market route, which will then come into our FAERS system. The FAERS system stands for our FDA Adverse Event Reporting System, where we host our safety reports. Today, we have about 29 million reports in our FAERS database. So there is a pre-market routing path or a post-market routing path that differentiates between the pre-market and post-market report. And you also probably know that FDA publishes our safety reports publicly. The only reports that we publish publicly are the post-market safety reports. We do not publish any of the pre-market safety reports. This is something which is a little more technical in nature, where your IT organization would go into to set this up to submit electronically. If it was the manufacturer side, then their IT department would set this up to submit this. Set this up to submit this report electronically to FDA. This basically this table tells us if you were submitting a pre-market report or a post-market report. Post-market report, again, is for marketed product, and pre-market report is any report that you are doing an active investigational drug. So this is the path that needs to be submitted, and then the standard actually has certain data points where certain values have to be set up so that the reports come to FAERS appropriately and is segregated between pre and post market, so that we don't publish the data for pre-market publicly. So this is the option that we have. Two options. One is to submit through this first option, database to database. Most likely organizations like where there's a healthcare professional, the best way to submit a post-market safety report is that you could go through a portal to submit those reports. There's another third option that we have, which I'm going to go over in my later slides, which is called the MedWatch online portal. But this is where an organization where a company could submit through the direct transfer of an XML file, which comes to our gateway, goes to our FAERS database, and sends you an acknowledgement back. The safety reporting portal is a web-based portal. So this is where you would just go in, have a login, and you can submit your safety report directly. So the safety reporting portal, especially for sponsors or CROs without an infrastructure of this gateway, it can submit individual reports only. It can be used for both commercial and research IND safety reporting. So research IND is where you could be part of that research IND where you are an investigator in that particular research IND to submit this report. And then, but this is the only caveat here is this reporting is not available for vaccine reporting. So vaccine reporting has the FAERS system where you would go to do your vaccine reporting. If you were a CRO, a healthcare professional at the CRO, then you would need to have making sure the different sponsors that you work for has different account. This is post-market and pre-market, both can be submitted. This is an online form, very simple to use. And at the end of the submission, you get an acknowledgement to say that you have submitted your report. This is free, no cost to use. And the availability of both is already available today. And if any healthcare professional who is using this safety reporting portal to submit their post-market reporting, they don't have to do anything. But if you're doing pre-market, then there is some additional registration that you may have to do. Any questions? We have this email address, FAERS@fda.hhs.gov, and that gives you they will tell you all the instructions and how to do this and how to do that. Any questions you have, you can submit your questions here. So to do such kind of implementation, we actually have different documentation that we have provided, which we call the FDA implementation package. This is, again, as I said, some of these information is more applicable towards some of the industry people. But of course, you have healthcare professionals there, where you can actually look at this documentation to tell you how this implementation is to be done. This also defines all the different data elements that is to be submitted, how they need to be submitted, what are the definitions of these data elements, and so on and so forth. We also provide something called as a forward compatible rules. I mean, this is basically a document that we use where if you were submitting safety reports using that ICH E2B R2 standard, how do you move to R3? So that is the forward compatible rule document. And then finally, we have given some example instances of the XML file, how it will happen. So if your organization is using something like this to submit safety reports, these are the documentation you could use to transition over to the new standard of E2B R3. Or if you want to start submitting electronically, this is a method to be you can look at for in your organization for reporting electronically to the agency. So those are different mechanisms that you have, but then you also have different types of report. So going into the IND safety report, so this is where all the IND safety reports are going to go into FAERS. So if you were a organization that is doing a research IND, working on a research IND, now you could actually submit electronically the different types of reports. Typically for non-commercial INDs or research INDs, it's not mandated to submit electronically, but it's preferable to submit electronically because as the agency receives this report electronically, it can process electronically and make the data available to our reviewers sooner than later. Right? So these are the different types of reports that could be submitted in an electronic fashion for IND safety reports. Mostly are IND individual safety reports that is to be submitted. So this part of the slide is more applicable to the industry reporters. But again, if anybody's there, a healthcare professional from the industry side, you can see that this really helps your organization, saves time and effort in not submitting certain type of information. And then especially if you have things like cross-reported INDs, you now submit one report rather than submitting X number of reports. And of course, all this information that you submit goes to your regulatory affairs, and then you submit it, which is no longer required because this safety data can come directly from your safety database to the gateway to or to FAERS. These were some of the updates that we did, and these are all the updates that we have done since the last specification that we had posted are all available in the specification document that I talked about, the 4 documents that we have. Of that, the one of the documents actually has this information as to what was updated. This is the final updates that we have had, and the specifications are basically final. All right. So where are we with this whole implementation of electronic reporting? We had published our regional specification sometime in 2022 and update in 2023. We also did tool enhancements that was completed. We did our setup, we did some testing, and now we have our public communication has gone out with different communication methods that we have used to communicate this. And FDA FAERS is ready to accept both post-market and pre-market safety reports using the electronic methods that I went over in the previous slides, right? Through the safety reporting portal or directly to the database. All right, so that's what I just mentioned. Now, if you are an organization who is preparing this XML files and want to test them, we also have given a link on fda.gov where we call it as the FDA E2B R3 validator. So which is like an XML file that you can upload and validate, and it will tell you all the issues that it has. So your organizations, most likely the technical person in the organization will be able to do that. And once these are all all the validations have passed, you can actually submit this to the agency. So what typically would change is, again, if you had to submit as a sponsor, if you submit a MedWatch form to FDA, especially for IND safety reports, this will go into FAERS, and finally, FAERS takes this data. It goes through a process of electronic submission through a concept of ECTD. Of course, ECTD submission is sometimes done by some research sponsors or also done by the industry. So industry, of course, it's mandated. So this is the process that happens today. As we move to the electronic submission, this will be the process. So which means everything will be electronic and FDA can look at this data electronically. Typically, the mandate for organizations who have to submit this mandatorily have to submit electronically. They have 2 years to comply to submitting electronically, either via the gateway or through the safety reporting portal. So this is our implementation timeline. Some of them are items are proposed, some of them already happened, in which our FAERS Safety Day system actually captures post-market report and cosmetic reports, which we started in January. In April, we started accepting the pre-market safety reports, and industry will have 2 years to comply to this. Of course, as I said, companies who are submitting non-electronic method, they don't have a mandate to submit electronically, especially the research INDs. But it's recommended that if you go the IND route, then it's advantageous to both parties. And finally, companies must have to submit pre-market reporting by April 21st, 2026 in an electronic format. So this is our basically timeline for getting our all types of reports into FAERS electronically. So as I said, these are the 2 methods that we have. And in these 2 methods, these are some of the benefits that we have. I'm stressing on this particular section just because if you are an organization who are ready to submit electronically, these are the advantages that you will have. And especially some of the advantages, of course, are for the industry, but getting into the safety reporting portal will really help to submit this report electronically, which we can then ingest and make available to our reviewers, in a digitized fashion. So we encourage the use of safety reporting portal. We also say here is the contact information that you're going to connect with if you want to submit reports to the safety reporting portal. So this will be most likely for healthcare professionals who are doing some kind of research INDs or the research studies. They could definitely contact at faersesub.fda.hhs.gov to be able to submit the reports, safety reports electronically. This is a slide for submitter preparedness. Again, this is more geared towards the industry. This is where, how you would set up and how you would go to submit this data electronically, which means submitting through the gateway. Typically, companies have these gateways set up, and but if you go through the safety reporting portal route, you just have to have an account to get into it and submit your safety reports. So the safety reporting portal, if it was submitted by the safety reporting portal or via the safety reporting portal, you have an option here. You have the IND safety reports. You can pick which report it is. You can start a new report, and it'll give you a screen which will then tell you that how it's to be submitted. So it is more appropriate for sponsor investigators submitting a pre-market safety report. So this is how the screen looks like, where once you have got a login, you can actually go and see all the different sections of a report. These sections are basically the MedWatch section, which most of your investigator are used to seeing. So they can basically fill in this and submit this report to the FDA. Right. So this is all about IND safety reports that are pre-market safety reports that you would be submitting. So moving forward, let's talk a little bit on submitting voluntary safety reports electronically. So the key thing, this is where I think most of you will be most interested in, is the MedWatch Online. So healthcare professionals can voluntarily report observed and suspected adverse event for a human medical product to FDA. So this is where you go, the MedWatch Online. Individual reports only, you cannot batch reports. So if you are working in a hospital, yes, you have to report, well, you have to submit one report at a time, unless you decide to use to reporting through the electronic method, which I just talked about, to submit an E2B XML file where you can batch things. You can submit via mobile device or from a computer. The MedWatch Online allows reporters to then start a report and complete the report within 3 days. So if you have started a report within 3 days, you need to complete. And reporters can save an incomplete report and provide an email address to receive instruction on how to complete or submit a report with a report ID and a report date. So if you have started a report, it'll give you a report ID and a report date through which you can go back and within 3 days to be able to complete that report. And then after submitting the report, you cannot retrieve the report and edit it. So once you have submitted the report. Now, information that you should report on that MedWatch. So you have unexpected side effects or adverse event, can include anything from like skin rashes to more serious complications. And you have product quality problems, such as information if the product isn't working properly or if it has a defect, right? A situation of a contamination and so on and so forth. Product use or medication error that can be prevented. So medication error. So this can be caused by various issues, including choosing the wrong product, maybe because of the label or the packaging that look alike, or they have similar brand name or generic name, or sounds very similar. So mistakes can also be caused by difficulty with the device use due to hard to read controls or displays, so which may cause you to record the test results that is not correct. So these are some examples where you can have a medication error or a product use error, or you may see that the error has occurred, but it has still not reached the patient. So in such case, also you can report that to the FDA using the MedWatch Online, right? So, and then finally, you have therapeutic failures. These problems can include when a medical product does not seem to work, as well as you switch from one generic to another. You can then report about that through the MedWatch Online website. So the MedWatch Online website is an online site where you can report. So some of the recommendation that we would give for voluntary reporting, and fill in all the information possible to support detailed analysis. Sometimes we would see that a narrative may say, hey, the patient was 49 years old. But since if somebody knows that the age is 49, then we would also recommend to fill in the age field with the year, with the number 49 and the unit as years, right? So it also helps us in doing detailed analysis when we have data more structured. Okay, provide detailed narrative of the incident or the event that has occurred. Complete the structured data fields as much as possible. And we encourage reporter to provide their contact information in case FDA needs more information. But as you also know that the contact information has a checkbox on the MedWatch Online to also say that if it was, you want to disclose your information or not. If that information you don't want to disclose, then you have a checkbox there. So accordingly, FDA will not disclose this information anywhere to anyone, but will only use to contact the reporter for if the FDA needs more information. Okay, to how to go into MedWatch Online. And the easiest way is, either you go to FDA.gov, or you can just type in Google called MedWatch Online. right? And then that will take you to this link. And from this link, you can go to this particular page where you have a button which says report a problem. Another way to do it is to take this URL here and make this URL a bookmark so that you know MedWatch reporting or MedWatch online reporting. Make it as a bookmark so that every time you have to submit, you can directly go here and use this form to submit. So in here, you have report a problem. So if you click on report a problem, it will directly take you to a screen where it tells you that are you submitting as a healthcare professional or a consumer? And in order to, for your who are healthcare professionals, you would then select the healthcare professional, which is the MedWatch Form 3500. There are a lot of instructions given here as to how to report. And some of the items that I mentioned in the previous slides are also mentioned on this page, right? If you had an incomplete report, you can click on this. And then once you have the report number, we can complete the report within 3 days. And last few more slides, it's voluntary submission. So once you click on this, the screen comes up here and you are able to now submit all the detailed information about that incident or the adverse event. And once you go, it'll take you to a few screens. Again, when you if you don't have a device related information, you can skip this. Or if you only have a device related information, but nothing to do with the product, which is the drug, then you can skip that and directly go to device and so on and so forth. And eventually you will submit that report. So getting to some closing thoughts, that a use safety reporting portal for mandatory submission for IND safety reports by the investigators. And you can use MedWatch Online for submitting voluntary safety reports by healthcare professional, especially for the post-market safety reports. So with that, I end my presentation and I will invite Jung Lee to go over her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Saranjan. So I am Jung Lee, pharmacist from Division of Clinical Safety and Surveillance in the Office of Safety and Clinical Evaluation at the OGD CDER FDA. In my section of the presentation titled BA/BE Study Safety Reporting for Generic Drugs, I'll be providing a brief overview of the generic drug pharmacovigilance and cover the bioavailability BA and bioequivalence BE study safety reporting requirements and focus on the electronic safety reporting from BA/BE studies. The key characteristic of the generic drug pharmacovigilance is that it is a collaborative process. We work with the colleagues at CDRH to handle safety issues regarding the generic drug device combination products. We engage with different offices within CDER, as listed on this slide, as well as internally within the OGD to address the various generic drug safety issues. Not only is it across the centers or the offices, but the generic drug pharmacovigilance covers the entire life cycle of the generic drugs. In the pre-market phase, the safety issues observed during the BA/BE studies conducted under IND application, which are referred as bio-IND studies, as well as the safety reports from BA/BE studies not conducted under IND, which are referred as IND-exempt BA/BE studies, are reviewed, and they inform the safety evaluation of the abbreviated new drug application called the ANDA, safety issues, which are in turn supporting the post-market safety review and surveillance efforts for approved generic drugs. The safety reporting requirements are different for BA/BE studies conducted under an IND and those not conducted under an IND. And as Saranjan mentioned, these are more applicable for the generic industry, but if you're an investigator conducting these studies, it will be also applicable to you. And if you are working for the generic industry, this will be helpful for you to support your company comply with these rules. So those under IND must meet the safety reporting requirements under 21 CFR 320.31 and 312.32. Under these requirements, the sponsors are required to submit IND safety reports for events that are serious, unexpected, and suspected adverse reactions known as SUSARs. And these regulations require reporting of an individual case safety report as well as aggregate reports. The BAB studies not conducted under an IND must meet IND exemption under 21 CFR 32031. And these studies are required to meet safety reporting requirements under 21 CFR 32031D3, which requires reporting of any serious adverse events observed during the conduct of the BAB study, regardless of whether the event is considered drug-related or not, in an expedited manner. This slide compares the pre- and post-market safety report submission and review processes for generic drugs before April 1st, 2024, when the FAERS enhancement was released. Here, the pre-market safety reports are also separated by bio-IND and IND-exempt BA safety reports. And this is a busy slide. And what I want to emphasize here is that the generic drug pre-market safety report have been submitted in form FDA 3500A in PDF format. By-IND safety reports met the ECT standard requirements, and the IND-exempt BA safety reports are sent to the OGD mailbox by email, which were entered into the tracking system manually, and the linkage between the initial and follow-up reports were all done manually. And these pre-market processes contrast with those of post-market safety reports that were submitted to the FAERS database in E2B format via electronic submission gateway or via safety reporting portal. And the good news is that the FAERS enhancements brought us the opportunity for electronic submission of adverse events from pre-market BAB studies for generic drugs. Here are the highlights of the electronic IND safety reporting requirements under 745AA of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. According to the final guidance for industry published in April 2024, the sponsors of commercial INDs have two options in meeting the electronic submission requirements, as Sarajan mentioned. One is through electronic submission gateway, and the other is through the safety reporting portal. The sponsors can begin voluntary submission format starting April 1st, 2024, and the mandatory requirements will begin in 24 months after final guidance is published. I would like to point out here that the bio-IND safety reports must meet the electronic ICSR reporting requirements under 745AA. As mentioned earlier, the IND-exempt BA safety reports are currently submitted in the form FDA 3500A to the OGD mailbox. This option will continue to be available in the future. But now that the FAERS enhancements is available, E2B format is an acceptable form of notification to the FDA. Like the postmarket and the IND safety reports, there are two options for submitting ICSRs from IND-exempt BA safety reports in E2B format. One is the E2B submission via electronic submission gateway, which will be the focus of the rest of my presentation, and the other is via safety reporting portal. If a company, a person, an investigator, or contract research organization, whom I'll be referring as submitter, conducting IND-exempt BA studies, choose to use this electronic submission option to notify FDA, we recommend the following. First of all, to understand the requirements. And these are clearly stated in this FDA guidance, referred as technical specification document. And also note that OGD also has published a final guidance for industry, electronic submission of expedited safety reports from IND-exempt BA studies to support this process. And I have listed additional resources here. The next step is to prepare the IT system for E2B R3 submission. If the submitter does not already have a FAERS account, we recommend to please create one. The contact information for creating an account is on this slide. Next thing to keep in mind is in submitting IND-exempt BA safety report is to obtain pre-assigned ANDA number, also known as a pre-ANDA number. This number is requested via CDER NextGen portal. Instead of waiting until a SAE is observed, it would be ideal to have this pre-ANDA number or have it ready prior to submitting an assay report or even before recruiting for BAB studies. Once the submitters have their system ready, all the information needed, and ready to submit the safety reports, at this point it is critical to correctly identify ICSRs from IND-exempt BAB studies. First of all, by complying with the business rule for submission path. As shown in this table, there are FDA-defined header attributes and routing IDs specific for CDER premarket ICSRs, and also message and batch receiver identifiers specific for IND-exempt BAB safety reports. And these business rules are created, first of all, to differentiate between pre and post-market ICSRs, and second of all, to ensure pre-market safety reports are not published publicly, and lastly, to make IND-exempt BAB safety reports available to the ODT reviewers. In addition to complying with the submission path business rules, it's important to select type of report in data element C13 as 2 to indicate that this is a report from study. Submitters should make sure to include a pre-ANDA number in the FDA C55B. This is FDA data element, regional data element with a maximum length of 10, a numeric type data with conformance rule of conditional required, meaning that if the type of report is 2, which indicated a report is from the study, and the message receiver identifier is CDER IND-exempt BABE, then this FDA C55B pre-ANDA number where AE occur becomes a required data element according to the business rule. Also note that this pre-ANDA number must be a valid one for processing and routing. In addition to correctly identifying and routing the ICSRs, it is also important to identify drugs the subjects are exposed to. In E2BR3, ICH data element GK22 titled medicinal product name as reported by primary source is used to report the proprietary or the trade name of the drug. The data element GK23R1 is used to report drug substance name. If there's no proprietary name, only drug substance name can be reported. And it is also important to characterize the role of the drug in the data element GK1. Submitters can select the values for the appropriate role of the drug, 1 for the suspect, 2 for concomitant, 3 for interacting drug, and 4 to indicate drug not administered. Occasionally, a situation is observed in the IND-exempt BAB studies where the subject experienced a serious adverse event without being exposed to the study drug. For example, if the subject signed the consent form for the study, has a car accident, and was hospitalized even before the study drug was assigned, because of the outcome of the hospitalization, that accident constitutes a serious adverse event that must be reported to FDA. This would be a case where the role of the drug as number 4, drug not administered, can be used. There is a regional data element titled FDA additional information on drug. This is a data element with maximum length of 2 and a numeric type data with the conformance rule of conditional required, meaning that if FDA C55B includes pre-ANDA number any drug exposure is required to have at least one of these data elements listed in the table. One for the test, two for the reference, or NA for all other drugs or information is not available. This data element is unique for the OGD and an important one for us to understand the correct drug exposure and reviewing the pre-market safety reports from BAB study that compares the generic test drug to the reference product already in the market. So far in this presentation, I have highlighted some of the data elements in the IND-exempt BA electronic safety report, but these are not the only data elements, and there are many other data elements necessary to successfully submit electronic pre-market safety report. So we highly recommend submitters to refer to technical specification document for more information on other ICH and FDA regional E2B data elements. To support this transition, sample XML files are made available at the FDA FAERS website. Finally, we recommend submitters to review acknowledgements and notifications as they start submitting the electronic pre-market safety reports. These are helpful information because they indicate status of submission, whether the submissions are accepted or rejected. In case of rejection, the reason for those rejection. Again, the FAERS electronic submission coordinator is available to help with any issues. Here are encouragement to the submitters who are considering electronic submission of IND-exempt BA safety reports. First of all, the FAERS use specific data elements to identify pre-market safety reports and sequester them from post-market reports that are available in the public portal. Secondly, the pharmaceutical companies with approved products already have the pharmacovigilance system conducive to electronic post-market safety reporting. And IND as well as bio-IND pre-market safety reports are required in electronic format. So it just makes sense for efficiency purpose to have all the safety data in one submission method, including IND-exempt BA safety reports, with the added benefit of automated confirmation of receipt. And another advantage of submitting IND-exempt BA safety reports in electronic format is supporting generic drug pharmacovigilance. This transition will improve generic drug safety signal detection and enhance data management and analytics both in the submitter's drug safety system, as well as regulatory environment at FDA. With this, I would like to end my portion of the presentation with the acknowledgement and gratitude to everyone who, on this slide, who helped me to prepare for this talk. And I thank you all for joining us and look forward to engaging with you in the Q&A session.
Thank you so much, Mr. Day and Ms. Lee. Great presentation. This does conclude the presentation portion of our webinar. All right, we do have just a few minutes. Let's see. The first question is to you, Saranjan. I stated to submit a report via MedWatch Online. What do I do if I have not submitted the report in 3 days?
All right. So the answer to that, if you have not submitted the report in 3 days, the report goes into like an archived, and you will have to re-enter the report again. This report is not available anymore. So within 3 days, if you have not submitted, then as I said, you have the option to, with the report ID and the report date, you can go back to the report and submit. But yes, after 3 days, the report is no longer available. You have to submit a report from scratch again. Thank you.
Thank you, Saranjan. Second question, what happens to the report submitted by a healthcare professional?
So what happens to a report when submitted by a healthcare professional? Once this report is submitted by the healthcare professional, that is first triaged by FDA, because we have to understand that this report is on what specific product. And as you know, we have, say, FDA has multiple centers who look at different product types. So if it will do triage, and if this report is something to do with drug or therapeutic biologic, or a cosmetic report, then these reports will go into case processing and may be available to the reviewers for their analysis and signal identification. If it is for other centers, same activities will probably happen, but these reports will be routed to that other center for them to process in their safety database and do their analysis and signal identification.
Let's do one more question before we end. Besides electronic submission, what are the other methods of submitting a report?
Okay, so beside the electronic submission, which we would all want all of us to go towards, but yes, there are options where you can submit a report by faxing the report. So there's an email address, fax number that we have on MedWatch Online, or you can mail the report to us, and an email and a physical address has been given. The only thing that you cannot do is for especially those post-market voluntary reports, you cannot email it to us. So we don't have an email address just because email may not be secured. So that's the reason we only have fax, or you mail it to us and we will send you an acknowledgement to make sure that we receive the report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you have questions that we did not have time to address today, please email them to our Division of Drug Information email address at druginfo@fda.hhs.gov for assistance. If you need more CEs for your license renewals this year, please check out our list of home study CE webinars at www.fda.gov/DDI webinars. And if you have your phones out, we have 6 QR codes on the slide in front of you that are easy to access. There's a QR code for X, the Drug Information Listserv, our continuing education webpage, our podcast, our Gaddis LinkedIn group, and our fellowship program. Please scan these QR codes for more information and CE opportunities. You may also find additional free CE credits, such as FDA's drug regulation course titled FDA's Role in Public Health, Drug Efficacy, Safety, Quality, and Beyond, on our CEDAR Learn website by entering CEDAR Learn in the search engine on fda.gov. This concludes our activity for today. The FDA appreciates your participation in this webinar, and we hope that you will join us again in the future. Thank you again for attending this webinar, and please stay safe and healthy. Take care.